This is Power Athlete Radio. With your hosts, Denny K, Professor Booty, and the Luke Summers. And now, toes forward, hips locked, shoulders set, and retract those scapulars. It's time for some knowledge bombs.
What's up, Power Athlete Nation? Power Athlete Radio in effect, episode 25. Fall's here. It's beautiful in Chicago, 60 degrees. Last week it was 80. Once again, I'm joined with the Luke Summers.
What's up?
And the man, Professor Booty, Steve Playtech. What's going on?
What's up, Denny boy?
Denny boy. Wow.
Just kind of rolls off the tongue.
You know, dude, all of a sudden that reminds me, we had we had this competition last weekend. We were going, it was like gym versus gym. And so like I was one of the judges there, and one of my clients, I just happened to be judging her in the middle of the competition. And it's the heat of the moment. It was some kind of like double unders burpee thing. And she drops to the ground, you know, and it's intense. And I'm like, come on, it's all heart, baby. And it seems like at that time it got really quiet, and like the other judges looked at me and I was like, I don't even know where that came from. You know?
That's awesome, bro.
Yeah. Awesome. If I could like write down half the things I blurt out in the, you know, in like the heat of the moment when I'm like judging or coaching people, I mean, it'd be hilarious, dude.
You'd have like a coffee table book.
Yeah.
Dennyisms.
Her husband's standing right there, and I was like, dude, I don't know. I don't know.
That's awesome, bro.
Sorry.
Well, you know, it's funny. We had a gym on gym competition this past weekend too, and that seems like it's a new thing that's developing around the regions. It's quite fun. Work out as a team and crush another gym.
You know, we did. We brought about 12 athletes and had about 30 members from our gym just kind of sit out. It was at a different location. We just moved into a bigger gym a few months ago, about a 10,000 square foot, and where we were at was like 2,000.
Nice.
I mean, it was like a storage unit, you know. So all of our you know, supporters, if you will, were like outside looking in, you know, and yeah. They had probably half of the competitors. They were a newer gym. There was some mutual friendships between the two gyms. So that's how it kind of got started. But yeah, we went in there and crushed it. Yeah, just nice. Smashed. You know, we kind of follow the CrossFit football template, you know, strength's a big priority. Yeah. And, you know, heavy thrusters and the whole 9 yards. And it really showed when you go in there with, you know, I'm not going to say weaker athletes, but newer, more, you know, just getting into CrossFit, maybe a couple years. So yeah. It was fun.
Hey, I'm just in the CrossFit a couple years. Yeah, our event started with, it was 5 events. It's 2 hero wads as a partner, 2 girls as an individual, and then a strength or an endurance. And this weekend they pulled max deadlift. And so I only had to pick up the bar 3 times. I was warmed up to 220 kilos. And it ended up my warm-up's 1. So I'm with you. Strength is priority.
That's funny.
It's pretty good. So anyway, so we should talk about Power Athlete, right?
Yeah, right.
Episode 25. We're like a quarter century old.
Huge.
We're all grown up.
Power Athlete.
We're like making a stride towards maturity. No, we're not.
Luke, what do you think?
No way. Never.
You know, I think there's more of I think the shows are becoming more fluid, right? I mean, when this started, man, I mean, the first time I actually like had a conversation with Steve was probably 5 minutes before we recorded the first show.
Yep.
And I hadn't talked to Luke in person probably for like a year since Occupy Strength. So
yeah.
those first few shows, we just kind of winged it together and made it happen. And look where we're at now. We got 5 followers, you know?
Yeah.
And we're the 3 best Skype friends you could ever ask for.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So
on off air, what we do is we make each other friendship bracelets and ship them in the mail to each other.
That is true. I'm wearing 3 of them right now.
That's a true statement.
And one on my ankle because I'm just a baller like that.
I'm working on your toe ring one right now, Luke.
Perfect. No, it's great, man. I hope we're living up to everyone's expectations. And if you want to hear about something, just like it says on every post, submit it. We'll talk about it most likely. I think we've answered almost everything. There's a couple things in the queue because we're waiting for either John or some special guests to blow it out of the water. Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And keep those comments rolling on iTunes. And keep those submissions coming into Power Athlete.
Yeah, heck yeah, man.
Luke, you got any updates coming out of HQ?
Well, we just had a sold-out house in NorCal for our team series. So we had tons and tons of athletes competing, and an amazing finish to the final Prowler event up in NorCal, where every team had a chance to win and blew it.
So nobody won?
Everybody was in first place at one point, and Callie, I cannot tell you how many times Callie tells these athletes, if you touch the cone, it is a penalty. You have to go back around and circle the cone. Every team either hit that cone or one team went to go push the Prowler and accidentally lifted the handles off of the Prowler. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So like the removable handles, and it was the final stretch. And the guys at CrossFit CSA, if you don't know who that is, it's like Jesse Burdick, Katie Hogan. That's their home gym.
Nice.
So Jesse's pushing a 50-pound Prowler, and it might as well be a shopping cart, dude. And he's got like 15 yards in front of the second place team because they had just pulled the handles out, and they were maybe 10 yards in front of Jesse's team on the final pass of this ladder. And Jesse's just basically power slides around this turn like he's Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, and whips around this cone and clips it. And before Freddie, who's the judge, could tell him to get back, he's moving so fast. He's like 3/4 of the way down the stretch already. So it's like a 30-yard stretch, and he's maybe already 25 yards down. He's got to pull a U, go back around the turn, and by that time, the other team had the handles back in the Prowler, and we're on their way to victory, man. It was like, and then before that, the first place team was neither of those, CrossFit CSA or Caffeine and Kilos, the guys who took it. It was another gym, and they hit the cone, and then they had to go back and turn around and putz around with all that stuff. It was just like failure in execution, man. It reminded me, and everybody was good sport about it. I mean, because they were warned, but you know, the teams definitely lost the competition. The winner didn't necessarily win it. I shouldn't say that, because that team, they were super strong. They did great at the Metcons, and they were extremely well rounded. But I'm not sure they would have pulled off the Prowler event had there not been those penalties. You know.
Yeah. But I mean, that's it. You know, part of this competition is a mental game. One of my athletes went to the Crush Games and made it to the second day. It was head to head. All he had to do was finish by touching a kettlebell. Instead, he ran by and started celebrating. The other guy runs up 5 seconds later, touches the kettlebell, and he loses. So, you know, part of it is this mental game, paying attention to the rules.
Yeah. And, you know, we're not trying to I mean, you need to enforce those, and we kind of beat this one to death, but we try to enforce movement standards that are fair, that are realistic when it comes to the Metcons, but it's really about performance, right? And when you get into the whole Power Athlete methodology, when you come to our seminar, we hang our hats on performance, and part of sport, part of anything are just that, the technicalities. But overall, it was a great event. Tons and tons of attendees, spectators. It was our largest team series. So that was a ton of fun. Me, me, John, Ben, Callie, and our other coach, Chris, we all went out there and helped out with the event. Ben had to stay home and watch the gym, so he drew the short straw. But it was a good time. And it was at Freddie Camacho's gym. Freddie's been on the show before. And Freddie's just awesome. Him and China are just awesome people, and they're great hosts and everything. So it's always fun to go up there and hang out with those guys.
Cool.
And you had Ingo DJ the event, right?
And that's the whole reason I brought it up. I mean, he crushed it, man. Like it's completely, you can tell the difference being at some of these events, or even reviewing the film. So when I get the film from the GoPros and I cut it up for the lifts, there's just like either an iTunes playlist or it's like silent. Ingo had the place like electric the whole time. He had an awesome set of jams going, and he was throwing some of his like own personal faves in there, and I think he was amazed that people were digging it. I don't know. It was a good time. He's a super cool dude. And since the last time I saw him at the seminar, which was maybe 10 months ago, he put on like 12 or 15 pounds. He's jacked.
Nice.
Yeah, dude. Nice. So he's coming up to 200 pounds, which is the adult male weight that all adult males over 5'6" should weigh. And but he's a little worried because his sport is volleyball. So he's got to, he's got to be able to jump and move quick. And so I asked him, I'm like, hey, you going to be able to move around with this weight? And he's like, I think I should be able to handle it. So it'd be interesting to hear how it goes once his season starts up.
He's been following the program for a few years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen his name on the comments, and if you do that, you're going to get bigger, faster, and stronger. I mean, it just happens. So
he's, I think, over 2 years in, and he's still making gains, and it goes to show like it is a long road. And that's where a lot of these programs, especially people who like start CrossFit and see the best gains of their lives in 6-8 weeks, and they expect it to stay like that forever. It's like no. It's a whole different battle after that first 90-day window.
Yeah,
but it's still it's all about consistency, and that's one thing Ingo is he's consistent. He's consistent with his diet, sleep, and training, and that's going to get you results. But
cool.
Outside of that team series, we're going full bore right now on Wade's Army. Nice. So, and we talked quite a bit about it last week, but this is we like to think we do a lot for the community. We give away a lot of information, and one of our mottos, jokingly and sincerely, is people helping people. And this is something that John's super close to, super enthusiastic about. So if you guys are out there and you don't know what Wade's Army is, click on the little W on powerathletehq.com in the left navigation area, or just go to wadesarmy.powerathletehq.com. All the info is there. And basically we're trying to beat neuroblastoma, which is a really nasty condition, disease, and it struck close to home for John, and it's something we're going to go full bore on. So get on board. If you have any questions, email wadesarmy@powerathletehq.com. But that website should tell you everything you need to know to get on board. And just because our badge of honor within our circle is a shirt, we're going to have a Wade's Army shirt for donations over $30. Some Well Food Co. snacks as well. So it's going to be big. And the cool thing is this year over last year's, you can start a team essentially, and fundraising goals they're set out on the website, but I believe $1,000 or more for a team is going to get you a banner and some other swag, and we're getting all the details finalized. But get out there, get your donations in, let us know if we can help you, and let's make this Wade's Army thing a huge success.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think what makes it worse is it seems to just attack kids like 5 and under. Mm-hmm. And that just doesn't sit well with most people. I think in communication, Tex had said a few days ago that you guys are already at like 8% of the goal.
Yeah, we're getting there. And John, John's goal was $100,000, and and we kind of talked them down based off of last year and some realistic reach. But I think this year we're shooting for maybe 30 grand as our goal. But I know every time we talk about this, John's like, bump it up to 100, bump it up to 100. So if we can make John's dream come true, then we should do it. But any contribution, man, you know, and I'm going to get on the horn here with my boys back in Chicago, Denny. I'm going to talk to Neil and some of the guys over at Amplify and CrossFit Carbon and people I know that can relate, that have kids, and you know, it's super important to us, and we want to see what we can do to build an army. I mean, that's why we're calling it Wade's Army, is to support this Wade's Wings Foundation.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're on board. We're going to assemble a team. We're going to send out some information to the members. I kind of briefed them a little bit on it as far as making some donations before October 20th, so you can get your shirt before the WOD on November 11th.
Well, it's the WOD's actually. So we misspoke last episode. It's November 12th. So November 12th was the date that Wade passed away from his battle, and that's the day that we're going to honor him on. So it's the WOD will be on November 12th. We'll be posting on CrossFitFootball.com, on Power Athlete HQ, and that's where we want, or that's when we want all the gyms that we can get around the country, around the globe, to step up and help knock it out. You know.
Does that mean the reps are going to be changed to 12?
No, it'll be the same as last year. So it's 11, 12, 11 is was the date.
Nice.
Steve, what's going on in the background there? You got some weights dropping?
Caleb's throwing around a few kilos. He's clean and jerking right now, so she's probably in the 150s kilograms.
Nice.
just working some percentages.
Let's see.
Nice.
What else do I have for you guys? We got a cert this week or tomorrow in San Diego. So if you're in San Diego and you want to have a great time, get signed up. It's never too late. We're going to be out there doing our thing for CrossFit football and spreading the word on that program.
Who's going to be the coaches there? You?
Yeah, so me and Callie are going to be traveling with John, and then one of our coaches at Balboa, we're going to bring him along just because it's always nice to keep everybody up to date on what we're doing, keep them exposed to the Power Athlete methodology, because that influences everything we do everywhere. So our coach Chris, who helped out with the team series as well, call him Sprague or Sprague to Leg, he's going to be there as well, interning.
Nice.
Cool. All right, so going with the Power Athlete methodology, I came across an article a few days ago on the website was called All Things Gym. It was titled Programming Training Intensity for Weightlifters. And what kind of stood out to me was in this article, this guy was making an argument on a Soviet style of training, a strength training program, maybe working up to 80% and not exceeding that, versus more of a Bulgarian style where you're at near maximum loads like every single training session. Mm-hmm. And because there's really no like universally appropriate training method, I mean, the Bulgarians kind of dominated the Olympics for a while, then the Russians did. So, you can't say one's better than the other. Coming from a person like in the early 90s, I mean, most of my training and the info I can find came out of Flex magazine, and they preached at that time that more is not necessarily better. You'll become overtrained. Overtraining is like this, this evil word. So don't push yourself. Don't go past like these certain limits. And it seems like that they're wrong. That, we had Caleb Williams on the show, a month or so ago, and he said he squatted like 4 times a week, and I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on that, both of your guys' opinions on the two different styles and how, or why do you feel like more is better? if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and start with you.
Well, more, I mean, it all, what's interesting here is you have to take into account the athlete's age in terms of training age. You know, what they're talking about with these lifters, or what really where these articles are coming from is reviewing performance on the best lifters in that region. You know, I guess I've tried both of them in the sense that CrossFit football has a heavy Soviet influence. You know, we read a lot on Zadaskorsky and a lot of what's said in super training. We take that into consideration, have tested it, and find it to work the best. We've also tested the Bulgarian style, which is essentially the majority of your training lists are going to be over that 90%. And they talk about 1 RMs. And remember that something to remember on the RM is a rep max has to do with your daily training matrix. So they both worked. They both worked in terms of I got stronger. But one thing I noticed when I was hitting rep maxes and I kept pushing over 90% is, and I didn't correctly apply the rep max principle out of the gate, but I started to get slow and I started to get grindy, and I wasn't able really to move. In the sense of Metcons and CrossFit football style Metcons. So there was an issue there where we kept hitting these intensity lifts over 90%, and we were strong, powerful, but all we could really do is squat, you know? So it depends again, what it all goes back to. What are you training for? Would I consider this the Bulgarian style, a optimal training system for field sport athletes? Not necessarily, but you got to remember what the objective is for these weightlifters too. So
yeah, when you said that hitting those 90% or greater, you started getting slow. In super training, Mel Siff talks about that, and he says that that if there was cases where when that started happening, people would they would back off of the Bulgarian style. And then maybe within like 7 days or so, that's when they really saw the strength increase. And did you after you said that you got slow, when you backed off on that, say like a week later, did you kind of start experiencing the benefits of that kind of training, or no?
Well, I guess I never really. You mean after like the 11 weeks, did I get strong? Yeah, for sure, I was stronger. And what was interesting is, I think 2 or 3 weeks after we had done this Bulgarian template that we were going to see if we could put on the football site, we had programmed Fran at the gym at CrossFit Balboa, and I mean anyone who's tried this style of training will, if you're going to work up to a 1 RM and do, some sort of squat, pull and press and hit a couple drop steps after that, your training takes about 3 to 4 hours. I mean, it's a big chunk of time. So our members saw us training, and we're like, why don't you guys do any Metcons? Why aren't you conditioning? We're like, well, that's not what we're testing right now, So we got called out on Fran Day, and, I think at that time I was front squatting like 180 kilos. When I had
180 kilos?
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
When I had to do a 95-pound thruster, it was like, this thing is a paperclip. So I was able to just kind of relax and go through these thrusters super quick. And I think that was my lifetime best ever. Fran PR was doing, these 45 thrusters and 45 pull-ups. I think I got like 251, and Ben got like 230. So we crushed this thing, and we were absolutely amazed. And it just kind of went back to, being stronger for things like that is a definite advantage and a definite game changer. So after that, we went into more of like a max effort dynamic template, and I was strong on my singles and triples, but once I would go into 5s or greater, I was too winded under the bar to to do anything. So I definitely got stronger, but I suffered on the higher rep lifts.
Yeah, and so, you know, CrossFit football, they're big on the hit your rep max and then kind of back off and do, you know, 3 sets at 90 or whatever.
Right.
And which I would call that more like Soviet.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty influenced on that just because we see while you're getting these strength gains, you're also tapping into the energy systems that support a sport that is high horsepower, short duration, where a bigger, stronger, more rigid frame is going to be an advantage to you, but you also need to be able to handle the volume, so to speak, of the required movement duration, right? So if you're going to be rocking, rolling around on a play for 7 to 15 seconds, you got to be able to handle that and be able to do that over and over again.
Nice. Steve, you got an opinion on this?
I'm be honest with you, my opinion concurs with Luke. I mean, I think you're right. When you go into that like super compensation mode, you're going to get stronger and it's going to make the Metcons feel different, but it's about the athlete. And I think it's one of the things that Luke mentioned. The last question was, or maybe this question, training age. I think what I found is training up to the maxes works pretty well for the first couple of weeks, maybe even months for beginning to get them somewhere. And then backing off to sort of a more percentage-based thing is what our advanced athletes do, because they still have to move. They still have to do a Metcon, CrossFit, that sort of thing. But in a beginning athlete, their rep maxes they're still building it, almost like the amateur template, in the sense that they're not as beat down because they're not quite at those true pushing the limits of their physiology rep maxes yet. So yeah, I think Luke's spot on.
You know, as we're going through this discussion, I got the Super Training book open and they're talking about that like a Bulgarian style. If you're a novice, you know, it's going to put you in the grave because your CNS isn't even, it's not even primed yet to recover from that kind of beat down. You know, it's like you have no business doing it, and then going into like a more of a Soviet approach seems just to be more practical to kind of reach those desired goals and build up and create that strength threshold, right? So that threshold that you're building, and then eventually after, you know, it reminds me kind of like the amateur template, you know, after 20 or so weeks, you're going to have to either change the stimulus or increase the volume. And that's exactly what CrossFit football does.
Yeah.
So they're obviously taking that strength threshold into consideration.
Yeah, you will get strong. I mean, you will get strong following CrossFit football, and we've done the work. We've tried everything out, and for better or worse, you know, we've landed, I guess, selfishly, for better or worse, not for everybody on the other end of this thing, because I got smashed by that Bulgarian template. Oh my gosh, like physically, psychologically, emotionally, it was a rough one for me. But
you know, when we've had Callie on the show, it sounds like when you guys brought her on board, you kind of that's what you put her on.
Exactly.
Right? Like I kind of like have this mental picture of like her coming in, kind of telling you her background, and then you guys are like, "Oh, so you're pretty strong? All right, let's see. Follow this template for a while, and let's see how you react."
Yeah, and my absolute, I mean, I think I ended up front squatting what I started back squatting for RMs, and I put like as a relatively advanced lifter. I mean, I'd been following football for a while. I had been doing CrossFit and CrossFit football, and then prior to that, been doing CrossFit with some strength training, and then came out to work with John and Ben at Balboa, and was put on a strength program then that I had no idea what I was doing, but now to look back, it was kind of a hypertrophy type deal. But I was relatively strong and established as a lifter, and then I still managed to put on like 35 kilos on my back squat, which in the period of 11 weeks. But
that's huge.
It was amazing, dude. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. But in the most remedial sense, I really hadn't been doing singles. And if you want to get good at singles, you should probably do some singles. Now, would I recommend doing 5 a week every day?
Like suicide squat program?
Yeah, dude.
Something like that.
Not for the average lifter. It was one thing. I'm lucky I had training partners because there's four of us doing it at the time. And if it wasn't for them, I probably would have, I hate to admit it, but I probably would have fucking quit. Like, I had better things to do for that 4-hour period than suffer and get beat down by a barbell, like rep in and rep out,
Luke, what is wrong with you? You hate to work out, don't you?
No. I hate to suffer.
Yeah. Okay. So you hate to suffer. Yeah. Okay.
And not only that, like that was also like my, the one thing about CrossFit football, being on the seminar staff and being involved is, it's not a right, it's a privilege, and you kind of got to prove yourself in terms of your ability to present and work on and understand the content. And I'm trying to, like, at this point in my life, I'm like, I want to be on the seminar staff. I wasn't really on. I was kind of an intern, and I had no time to manage the gym and work on my presentation and my do study for the cert, as well as keep my girlfriend happy, who'd moved across the country for me. So it was just like a lot of things were piling up on me. Not to mention that I'd say 4 out of 5 days you're failing your lifts. You're failing your 1RM attempts and just getting beat down. So it was dark days. But you know what? Like, in hindsight, it was a great program. I got stronger. But it just it gave me just a little bit of insight to what elite weightlifters and elite strength athletes, like, what they need to go through psychologically and physically to be the best. And John was telling me about a discussion he had with Romanov, and I don't want to butcher this, but when it came down to it, the athletes, like, they checked all these data points and put together all these matrices trying to develop the perfect template to build the strongest athletes. And what it came down to is, regardless of the volume, and because they were weighing the Soviet style versus Bulgarian style and all these other variables, what it came down to is the athletes who lift the most weight or run the fastest in their training are the ones who lift the most weight or run the fastest in competition. Like, that's what it came down to. That was the result of these thousands of data points. So, when you look at it like that, if you are required to lift heavy weight for your sport, you need to be lifting heavy weight in your training. And
often.
Yeah. And I guess the other end of that is you shouldn't be lifting light weights. If you want to get strong, you want to stay strong, if you find yourself training regularly with reps under, let's say, 65%, then you're not going to get stronger. So
right. Well, Steve and I were talking about this, I think last week before the show started. Say you were hitting that 90% every single day, 2 to 3 hours a week of that intense weight training, and you didn't condition at all. Are you still going to have a certain work capacity to maybe, you kind of referenced how you guys worked Fran pretty well, more of a weightlifting movement, but say like, would that improve your sprint time? Or
no.
Give me some other kind of conditioning thing, something outside of like barbell training, just that effect on your CNS and all the other, like your sympathetic nervous system and all the other, parts of your nervous system. Would it kind of prep you in those fields, do you think?
Here's what it would do. You can't look at these, I guess in this case, if you're talking about a work capacity based training effect, you're going to detrain that with this style of programming, right? But you will get stronger. and a more efficient central nervous system. And what you have effectively done is built a more sound foundation to now transfer. If you were to change your training stimulus, you are now a bigger, stronger, more efficient athlete. And then you could now shift your training stimulus to be more work capacity focused. And I mean, that's what these elite CrossFit athletes and sport of fitness athletes are doing in their off season. They're doing this Soviet type training. They're hitting 1 RMs, they're hitting 3 RMs, and they're getting stronger. And then, 4 months out, they shift gears, and what's the primary training response to their training? They start with double days, and then they go to their triple days, and they go to their 4 days or whatever the hell they're doing. So it's like, think of it more like an order of operations. You want to build that efficient platform where strength and quality of movement and an efficient central nervous system can translate over to speed, can translate over to more efficient work capacity. So it doesn't happen at the same time, Denny, but it's a component of it. You're training those components.
Yeah, and I might just add that when you're doing that kind of training, while you don't necessarily maintain or improve work capacity, and in fact you may detrain it, you still maintain a sense of GPP. I mean, when you're moving heavy weights a lot, there's still a sense of general physical preparedness. It's just not in the CrossFit work capacity kind of way.
Dude, we talked about GPP yesterday for maybe 2.5 hours on what is GPP. So we had a roundtable yesterday with Callie, John, Ben, and I, and the plan was for us to run some lectures, and work on the seminar. and part of the introductory lecture is GPP, GSP, and SPP, which general physical preparedness, general specific preparedness, and specified physical preparedness. All right. Between John, me, Callie, and Ben, we debated on what seemingly nothing. Like, we came to no results about GPP other than anything you do is GPP, because it's general, it's broad. So yeah, lifting weights is going to establish some sort of base level of GPP, but if you choose to equate GPP to work capacity, it will reduce your level of, your threshold for work capacity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Absolutely.
So, if you talk about GPP training, oh my gosh, like, I can't tell you, like, it kind of gives me the shivers, because like, we were just going round and round accomplishing nothing for like 2 hours. But absolutely, you're going to have a level of GPP. And you know how much GPP you need? Enough to compete in your sport.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing. If you're a power athlete who does powerlifting or weightlifting, you need enough GPP to put the barbell over your head. You don't need to run a marathon in between lifts or climb a rope.
Right.
No, just recovering time between your lifts
to make your next
1
lift.
minute or so.
Maybe a little longer. Yeah.
Maybe a little longer.
But I don't know. Do we cover that, Denny, or what do you think?
I think so. I appreciate your guys' input. That's kind of a hot topic, a big debate. A lot of people like to write articles on, it's like everybody's kind of searching for the perfect training system, which there is none really.
Yeah, that's true. Denny, I think you're spot on. I mean, the take-home message really, I think, is that, Luke says it time and time again. John says it. They're programming for the masses.
Right.
What they found is that this program, sort of Soviet-based influence, whatever you would call it, works really well for 20, 30, 50,000 people. But I think the person looking for the perfect program needs to look for the perfect personalized program. And that's why when people come in, they're like, just give me Caleb's program. Well, no, it's designed for Caleb. Get a coach and get a program and get better. Yeah. I mean, I think that's really the take-home message. You read an article on the interwebs, and it's not going to make you a national champion. Get a coach who can personalize the program to you, see your weaknesses, work your mobility, your position, and then put some weight on the bar. All of a sudden, you're a pretty good weightlifter. I mean, it hasn't happened that way for me, and my coach happens to be a national champion. But I'm saying for the average, reasonably well-fit adult male, which I'm not sure that I classify in that well.
Well, that's kind of, that's one of what I like about the guys' CrossFit football template is, hit that rep max what you're capable of that day. Some days you only get it maybe one meal or two in before you can get to the gym. You didn't have the greatest amount of sleep. Steve, you and I were talking about the difference between a competition max and a training max. If on those days where, you just got to kind of go in and move the dirt, if you can just go in there and a template tells you to hit a 3-rep max and then whatever that is, accept it, and then back off, hit 3 sets at 90% of that, it's going to help you strive to that adaptation that they're looking for. And that's, I think that's why there's a lot of success and why that works when you try to program for 20,000 plus.
Oh yeah, I don't want that. I didn't want that to come across like CrossFit Football was doing something wrong. I'm just saying when you have these internet articles about trying to find the perfect program to make the perfect weightlifter, if you go into any gym that has serious weightlifters, each one of them has their own program. No, I agree. I think move the dirt. I mean, there's plenty of days I walk into the gym and I'm just here to move the dirt and get out. There's other days I come in and I am jacked up and ready to lift. And the difference between a training max and a competition max, I mean, in competition, I mean, just adrenaline alone, right? Let alone the audience and that sort of thing it's gonna jack you up if you're not overwhelmed by that anxiety of competition.
Right. Cool. All right, so we got a submission to the power. Let's get into power athlete submission first. Blake Keefe wrote in and he asks, what lifts directly help increase your vertical jump? Or what accessory work can be done to help increase my vertical jump? And he gives his current numbers. He's got a current vertical of 24 inches and his goal is 30 inches or more. Luke, you wrote that beautiful article a couple months ago that I think we didn't throw you enough love on there, but it was really well written and explained everything, I thought, like to the T. So this has got Luke Summers written all over it.
Well, I guess it's a good thing I'm on the internet.
Right.
Well, I guess the lifts that are going to directly help. Okay. All of them, I guess. So anything that's going to promote violent hip extension, which are going to be your squats and your Olympic variations of the lift, are going to help promote violent hip extension, which is a primary component of, I guess, the jump that he's looking for. So when you talk about vertical jump tests, and if anybody who's never done it, basically what you do is you walk up to this Vertec measurement device, you reach up as high as you can reach your fingertips, and that is considered your standing reach. And ultimately what the device will measure is spinal displacement. So your ability to jump up, touch as high as you can, and then that's your vertical jump. I think the article you're talking about, Denny, is vertical, like kind of the vertical jump versus the box jump, where a box jump isn't necessarily a true representation of your ability to displace your spine and your hips vertically. So the reason this is important to people and in sports is it's a biomarker for power and your ability to move your body, right? So any sort of Olympic lifting is going to help. That's assuming that, we prefer the power variations of the lifts because it's going to force you to fully extend. Now, I'm not talking about like elite level lifters and, your Caleb Williams guy of the world. But what we commonly see now, remember, we see hundreds of athletes a year, and we teach them how to Olympic lift. And people who are capable of getting in position for the full variations of the lift, whether it's a snatch or a clean, typically dive under the bar, and they won't focus on violently extending their hips to full range of motion. They do just enough to put themselves in a position to quickly retreat under the bar and then stand the bar up, which is fine. If that's what gets them, if that's what they're training for, they want to be able to lift up the most weight that they can through a full variational lift. Good on them. But if you're teaching an athlete how to jump, what you have to understand is your hips, knees, and ankles will hit this full extension. And people talk about triple extension all the time, but you need to hit that extension in order to optimally displace your body for a vertical jump test. So I would promote the power variations of lifts, whether that's a power snatch, power clean, and then do some squatting. And when you're squatting, focus on speed. Now, in terms of accessory, I love that term, accessory lifts. If you want to get good at jumping, start jumping more. And get a couple books. Super Training is basically the encyclopedia of everything you need to know in there about training and getting better is going to be in that book. But you need to now, if you haven't done any sort of plyo program, you're going to need to look into some sort of plyometrics. And, that's going to be unilateral, bilateral bounding, single response, multiple response. And you're going to have to essentially understand as Blake's level, I'm assuming he's going to be pretty novice to some sort of to plyometric training. You're going to have to understand how to progress your volume and how to progress, and whether it's in a linear fashion or you're going to be balancing volume and intensity jumping days, you're going to have to figure out how to pair that up. And I've been talking about Sprague quite a bit today, but him and I went on like a 6-week plyo program that we put together, and he paired it up with an Olympic lifting template, and I paired it up with CrossFit football. And I think after I had to bail early because why did I bail early on that program? I forget, but he went to the completion. He put like 7 inches on his vertical, and then I only went 4 or 5 weeks into mine, and I was able to put 5 inches on my vertical. So,
damn,
it worked, and that's one thing we're looking at here is, here's a perfect example. Blake wants to focus or tailor his training for vertical jump. Okay. We've had people wanting to focus their training on leaning out. Okay. We've had people want to focus their training on a particular lift. My squat is terrible. I want to get my squat up. My deadlift's terrible. I want to get my deadlift up. My press is terrible. I want to get my press up. There's, at the end of the day, what CrossFit football is a shell. It's only one layer to a stack of a complete program, if that makes sense. So think of all the layers you could stack on CrossFit football to make yourself a better jumper, to make yourself a better sprinter, to make yourself a better squatter. And, like we mentioned earlier, we have to program to the masses and try to, and we've put together a program that effectively drives a training response to get you bigger, stronger, and faster. Now, can you tinker with that? For vertical jump, yeah, we did it and it worked. So we're trying to figure out the best way to put something out there. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure book, right? You guys remember that shit where you like skip to page 30, skip to page 34 if you want to go to the murder mystery. Tex and I have been brainstorming how can we utilize CrossFit football and give people a little more specification, because our big deal is, what are you training for?
Right.
And you're in luck if you are, if you're an untrained amateur athlete. We have at least a year endeavor for you that is 100% optimal and will make you better across the board. And that's just following CrossFit football. And if you want to get really good results after that, you can just follow CrossFit football, right? Just follow it to a T, be consistent. It's worked. I mean, you got guys who hit us up all the time and they're like, it's amazing how well this works. I need to know, like, why does this work? And it's like, well, come to the cert, we'll tell you. And, but if at any way along that journey, you need to stop off and put focus on, that's something we just don't have the infrastructure for right now, so right. I don't know. I hope I answered the question. I kind of went off. My answer is really focus on pulling the shit out of the bar on your power variations and lifts. And in terms of accessory work, you got to do some plyos.
Yeah.
Nice.
Luke, do you happen to have, could you maybe post like a link to maybe like a beginner's plyometric workout or something, just so this guy doesn't get on the interwebs and end up hurting himself or something? Because one of the things you have to be careful with on plyometrics is, like you said, the volume, and not basically crushing things like your Achilles and stuff.
Yeah. So let me do that.
Just as kind of a precaution. I would say.
No, that's smart, Steve. Get a coach. That would help.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point. Get a coach.
So what I'll do is in the show notes, I'll just put a little template out for like a couple weeks. Try this out, throw it in pre-workout and see how it treats you. But I guess keep your eyes peeled. I think what we got to do is, because ultimately what we hate is the internet, but what we love is the internet, right? In the sense that there's so much shit out there. At one of the certs, I was actually up at One World, maybe a year or so ago. Guys coming out or was talking to me about how much, standard, the cert's great. You guys are the best. All the great stuff that people always tend to say, but he's like, and I'm like, I'm so amazed that people find this cert so fascinating because all this information is out there. And he goes, yeah, it is. But do you know how much bullshit's out there? And he's like, a lot of us aren't smart enough to sniff out the bullshit yet just because of our experience, and it got me thinking, like, people are lying to you to sell you shit. They do it all the time. And that's, I guess, something we hang our hat on is, we're not going to put out anything, one, that we haven't tried and tested. And two, that doesn't work. So, John was talking about just the other day, like the traffic that comes to either Talk to Me Johnny or Power Athlete on bulking or getting jacked, like for search terms and stuff, is far outweighs I want to be a better football player. You know what I mean? So it makes you think, and what are people training for? Like, there is that guy out there who's like, hey, I want to get a 500-pound squat, and he has measurable goals. But in actuality, what's in the back of his head when he's doing hammer curls after his workout in the mirror? He's like, I want to fucking look good, And there's no problem with that. Like, you want to look the part. So we're trying to figure out how we can skin all this thing and all these programs. And we've done it, and we've provided for people at the gym and in our personal training sessions and all this stuff, and share it with the world. We're trying to figure out the best way to do that. So I guess one thing I could say for Blake is, like, I'll put together a little plyo program for a couple weeks, and then maybe or hopefully down the horizon, you're going to see some ways to stack some stuff onto CrossFit football workouts to give you a more specific training response.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, fellas, I got to run because I got some speaking of training, I got some people here that I have to train. I'm at the gym today, so I'm going to have to sign off.
All right. Is there anything else, Denny?
I think we're good. For the listeners out there, get ready for next week's show. We're going to bring on John Meadows. He's bodybuilding, but his nutrition philosophy, I guess, really is similar to the CrossFit football diet, primal paleo philosophy. So get ready for that show. And I think we're good.
All right. Thanks, guys, as always. And again, just quick plug, check out the cert schedule, and more importantly, get on Wade's Wings. Get on the Wade's Army site and poke around there. We got to blast that out. So check out Wade's Army, powerathletehq.com.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too. Talk to y'all later.
See you guys.
Later.
Bye.